The man who never picked up his laundry. It started as a quiet night shift at a small laundromat on the edge of town. For months, nothing unusual ever happened there, just the low hum of machines and the faint smell of detergent. Elena Reyes, 26, worked the overnight shift alone. She liked the solitude. The job was simple: clean up, run the tills, and keep an eye on the few late-night customers who drifted in and out. But on March 14th, everything changed. At 11:47 p.m., the front door chimed. A man walked in wearing a dark hoodie, jeans, and carrying a small duffel bag. He didn't speak to anyone. He loaded a single washer, inserted a few quarters, and sat down in the corner, scrolling through his phone. When Elena checked the machine later, she noticed something strange. The wash cycle had never started. The coins were still there, the clothes inside untouched. The man had just been sitting there, watching the other machine spin. Moments before closing, he approached the counter. He asked quietly, "Do you lock this place at night?" Elena said, "No, not until morning." He smiled and said, "Good, makes it easier." Then he walked out the door. When the morning staff arrived, the same duffel bag was still in the machine. Inside were a white work shirt, khaki pants, and a name patch that read G. Wilkins. By the end of the week, Elena filed an incident report. Police traced the name to Gregory Wilkins, a 37-year-old truck driver from 2 towns over. He was last seen driving toward the laundromat's area that same night. His truck's GPS signal stopped transmitting shortly after midnight. Investigators canvassed nearby businesses. Security footage from a gas station next door showed Wilkins parking his truck behind the laundromat and entering through the front door. But there was no footage of him leaving. Detective Laura Nunez from the county the official report lists Wilkins as missing, presumed deceased, 1 forgotten bag of laundry, a single night shift, and a man who walked in, but never walked out. If you have any information related to the disappearance of Gregory Wilkins, please contact your local authorities. The man who never picked up his laundry, the footage that shouldn't exist. For months, the case of Gregory Wilkins sat buried in a file drawer at the county sheriff's office. There were no new witnesses, no leads, and no body. Officially, it was classified as a missing person. Unofficially, most detectives believed he was gone for good. But in the fall of that same year, something surfaced that changed everything. A new manager had taken over the laundromat building before it shut down for good. During the cleanup, she found a small box tucked behind an electrical panel in the back office. Inside were 3 old flash drives, each labeled by date. One of them was marked March 14th, the night Wilkins disappeared. The files contained raw security footage, apparently backed up automatically before the system was wiped. When detectives plugged it in, they expected the usual grainy clips. Empty aisles, flickering lights, people doing laundry. What they saw was different. The footage showed Wilkins entering the laundromat at 11:47 p.m., just as Elena had described. He loaded a washer, sat in the corner, and scrolled through his phone. But about 10 minutes later, another person appeared on camera, someone investigators hadn't seen before. A man in a gray maintenance uniform walked in through the back door using a key. He carried a mop bucket and began cleaning near the vending machines. For nearly 20 minutes, he and Wilkins shared the same space without interaction. Then, at 12:22 a.m., Wilkins stood up, removed his duffel bag from the washer, and approached the counter. The maintenance, an alias frequently used by Cole in prior arrests. It was the first solid link connecting both men. By late December, the sheriff's office issued a warrant for Raymond Cole's arrest. But he was gone. No current address, no phone, no digital trail. According to relatives, Cole had been living off the grid, taking odd jobs and sleeping in his vehicle. Authorities believe he used the laundromat as a target point, an isolated space, quiet, easy to access through a back service door he still had a key for. What happened between him and Wilkins remains unknown. Cole's motive was never confirmed, but detectives uncovered a pattern. In the years prior to his disappearance, at least 2 other men had been reported missing within a 5-mile radius of the same industrial corridor. Both vanished late at night. Both were believed to have been traveling alone. None were ever found. The case against Raymond Cole remains open. Despite multiple search efforts, he has never been located. The official record lists him as wanted for questioning in the presumed abduction and disappearance of Gregory Wilkins. For the families involved, closure has remained out of reach. The laundromat was demolished shortly after the discovery of the footage. All that remains is a vacant lot and a file filled with unanswered questions. And yet, each time investigators review the recovered footage, one final image stands out. Just seconds before the camera cuts, the reflection of the maintenance worker appears in the glass of a washing machine door, looking directly into the lens. For a brief moment, he smiles, then the screen goes black. The man in the van. When the name Raymond Cole surfaced, investigators felt they were finally closing in. He was no ghost, no mystery drifter. His record was full of small-time crimes, each one just unsettling enough to hint at what might come later. Cole. Investigators believed Cole might have been running an off-the-books transport scheme, possibly smuggling, possibly theft. Whatever it was, Wilkins might have stumbled into it that night at the laundromat. The FBI was quietly brought in to assist with digital analysis. Using satellite data and regional surveillance archives, they mapped Cole's movements across several states over a 4-year period. Each time he resurfaced, a small item theft or disappearance occurred nearby. Tools, fuel, sometimes even people reported missing for short spans before reappearing elsewhere with no memory of him. But after March 14th, there was nothing. No van, no credit trails, no sightings. Detective Nunez described the silence as a line that just goes flat, as if he stepped off the map. Then came another twist. A hunter in the Alder Creek woods discovered what appeared to be a buried tarp near an old drainage ditch. Beneath it was a collection of personal belongings, a rusted toolbox, a pair of gloves, a phone charger, and an identification badge. The badge belonged to Gregory Wilkins. The phone charger matched the brand of his missing phone, but the phone itself was never found. Forensic tests on the gloves revealed traces of hydraulic fluid, the same kind used in Wilkins's trucking company. DNA swabs confirmed Cole's presence on the inner lining. The evidence was overwhelming, but still, there was no body, no definitive proof of murder, only disappearance. The sheriff's office released a wanted bulletin nationwide. Cole was now considered armed and dangerous. Over the next 6 months, alleged sightings poured in. A man living in his van outside Denver, a transient worker near the Texas border, a drifter seen cleaning out an old laundromat in Kentucky. Each lead collapsed under scrutiny. Each time, the man was someone else. But in early 2022, a surveillance camera arrest stop in Oregon caught something investigators couldn't ignore. A man wearing a gray uniform, carrying a duffel bag, walked into a coin laundry just before midnight. He loaded a single washer, inserted coins, never started the cycle. He sat in the corner, scrolling through his phone, and when the camera zoomed in, the patch on his chest read, Marlowe Property Services. The timestamp showed exactly 4 years to the day since Gregory Wilkins disappeared, the trail that wouldn't stay cold. The grainy footage from the Oregon rest stop arrived at the county sheriff's office in late spring of 22. It was flagged by a local deputy who had remembered the bulletin, a faded mugshot of Raymond Cole, wanted for questioning in the disappearance of truck driver Gregory Wilkins. The timestamp on the video was March 14th, 11:48 p.m., exactly 4 years to the night since Wilkins vanished. The coincidence was impossible to ignore. In the video, the man moved the same way Cole had in earlier surveillance, methodical, almost rehearsed. He carried a duffel bag in his left hand, a dark hoodie pulled tight around his face. He loaded a washer but never started it, sat in the corner, waited, and then, after 23 minutes, walked out the door and disappeared into the night. Detective Laura Nunez stared at the footage for hours. She'd watched hundreds of clips like it before, each one a dead end, but this was different. There was precision in his timing, as if he wanted to be seen, as if he were leaving a message. Investigators traced the security feed to a chain of rest stop laundromats scattered across the Pacific Northwest. Each one was on a major trucking route. Each one had recorded a man matching Cole's description, entering, waiting, and leaving within 30 minutes, never speaking to anyone, never making eye contact. The behavior pattern was so deliberate, it felt ritualistic. Agents from the FBI's Fugitive Task Force joined the search. They built a behavioral profile that painted Cole as transient, resourceful, and driven by control, a man who survived by staying one step ahead of anyone watching. But as they closed in, Cole changed tactics. The rest stop van. A week after the Oregon sighting, a state trooper discovered an abandoned van parked behind a rest area near the Columbia River. It was white, rusted, and stripped of its license plates. The logo, Marlowe Property Services, was faintly visible on the driver's door. Inside, investigators found a scattering of personal items: canned food, maps, a half-empty thermos, and a single work glove. But what caught their attention was the dashboard camera, still attached but missing its memory card. Under the passenger seat, a crumpled receipt from a convenience store was dated March 14, 10:03 p.m. The signature on the back read David Ray, the same alias Cole had used before. Forensics confirmed partial fingerprints on the thermos and glove matched Cole's earlier records. DNA evidence was consistent with a male, mid-40s, of Cole's genetic profile, but there was something else. A small fragment of another person's DNA, female, unidentified. It was the first hint that Cole might not be traveling alone. The discovery shifted the investigation again. Was this an accomplice, a new victim, or someone helping him stay invisible? Detective Nunez coordinated with Oregon state authorities to widen the search. Within days, reports began to pour in. A man fitting Cole's description seen buying fuel in rural Washington, another sighting near an RV park in Idaho. Each lead took days to verify, and by the time agents arrived, he was gone. One gas station clerk remembered him vividly. Quiet guy, paid in cash, asked if the cameras worked out back. When I said they did, he left without buying anything. That was the pattern: brief appearances, sudden vanishings. Cole seemed to know exactly where the cameras were and which angles would leave him a ghost. The woman in the passenger seat. 3 weeks into the manhunt, a new lead came from an unexpected source. A long-haul trucker named Dennis Brewer contacted investigators after watching a news report about the Oregon sighting. He said he had seen a man and a woman traveling togue, ether, in a white van near the Idaho border around that same time. Brewer described the woman as thin, maybe mid-30s, wearing an oversized gray hoodie. She looked anxious, he said, like she wanted to be anywhere but there. When he pulled into a rest stop later that evening, he saw the van again, parked near the vending machines. The man was outside smoking. The woman sat in the passenger seat, staring straight ahead. When Brewer walked by, she mouthed something he couldn't hear. Then the man flicked his cigarette, opened the door, and drove off. Detectives checked rest stop security footage for that night. The cameras had been vandalized, all lenses scratched or covered with black tape. The woman's identity remains unknown to this day. Reconstructing the route, using toll records, credit card activity in nearby towns, and eyewitness accounts, investigators built a timeline of Cole's likely movements between 22 and early 23. He'd been traveling up and down Interstate 84, hopping between small towns, taking day labor jobs for cash, and sleeping in abandoned lots. In May 23, a construction foreman in Northern California reported that a worker using the name Rick D. had been on his crew for a week before vanishing. The man had paid for lunch in small bills, avoided photos, and carried a gray uniform shirt in his backpack. When shown a lineup, the foreman pointed to Cole's picture immediately. Authorities raided an abandoned motel in the area after learning a transient matching that description had been seen entering one of the boarded-up rooms. Inside, they found an improvised workshop, tools, cleaning chemicals, and a map of the western U.S. marked with red circles along major highways. Each circle corresponded to a known laundromat or truck stop. Among the clutter was a photograph, a washed-out Polaroid showing two men standing near a white van. One was clearly Cole. The other man's face was burned away by sunlight. In the background, a sign read, "Evergreen Laundry, open 24 hours. When investigators visited the location, the building was, as already shuttered, condemned after a fire 2 years earlier. But beneath the debris, they uncovered a rusted locker. Inside, they found another duffel bag. Inside that bag was something investigators had been chasing for 4 years: Gregory Wilkins's phone. The phone that spoke. The device was heavily damaged, corroded from moisture, but forensic technicians were able to retrieve fragments of its memory. Most files were corrupted, except for a few short audio clips recorded automatically by a voice memo app. The first was routine: the hum of a truck engine, Wilkins speaking to himself, maybe testing the recorder. But the final clip, time-stamped March 14th, 12:18 a.m., was chilling. It lasted only 47 seconds. Wilkins's voice is calm at first, then uncertain. Says he used to clean this place. Doesn't look like staff, though. What's that? There's a faint metallic sound, a muffled thud, and then silence. No other data was recovered. To detectives, it was the missing piece, not proof of murder, but confirmation that Wilkins had encountered Cole inside that laundromat before disappearing. The discovery reignited the investigation nationwide. The hunter becomes the hunted. By mid-23, the manhunt for Raymond Cole stretched across 6 states. Federal agents believed he was deliberately circling familiar territory, staying near routes he'd used before. Then came the break no one expected. A wildlife ranger in northern Nevada reported finding a freshly abandoned camp deep in the desert hills. In the ashes of a small fire pit lay burnt scraps of paper, one of them bearing the partial words, "They keep calling me the man who never left the laundry." Nearby, boot prints led to a shallow ravine where a rusted handgun was found. The serial number had been filed off. The prints matched Cole's known shoe size. But what stunned investigators was what else they fool, and in a torn photograph showing the same woman from the Idaho sighting standing beside Cole near a riverbank. On the back of the photo, scrawled in pencil, were the words, "I didn't want this." The handwriting was hers. To this day, her identity remains one of the investigation's greatest mysteries. Near capture. In September 23, a tip from a motel clerk outside Reno, Nevada, nearly ended the chase. A man fitting Cole's description had checked in late one night using cash, no ID, driving an old pickup with Oregon plates. The clerk recognized him from a true crime program and called local authorities. By the time officers arrived, the room was empty. But inside they found a freshly laundered work shirt hanging on the bathroom door. On the chest, the same faded patch, Marlowe Property Services. It was damp, still warm from the dryer. Surveillance cameras outside showed Cole walking across the parking lot at 3:42 a.m., carrying a duffel bag and a small box. He looked straight at the camera before vanishing into the darkness. The image froze investigators in their tracks. For the first time, he wasn't avoiding the lens. He was staring into it, almost daring them to follow. The press and the pressure. By late 23, the case had become a national obsession. News networks called him the man in the van. Podcasts speculated endlessly, some calling him a serial kidnapper, others a misunderstood drifter. But to Detective Nunez, the attention was a distraction. The more the public speculated, the harder it became to separate rumor from truth. She worked quietly, reviewing old witness statements, revisiting locations, and rebuilding a timeline down to the minute. What she found unsettled her. Every major sighting, from Oregon to Nevada, fell on March 14th, always around midnight, always near a laundromat. It wasn't random, it was ritual, the return. In early 24, nearly 6 years after Wilkins's disappearance, a night shift clerk at a small coin laundry in Utah called local police. She said a man had come in just before midnight, carrying a gray duffel bag. He loaded a washer, didn't start it, and sat in the corner, staring at the spinning machines. When she asked if he needed help, he smiled and said, "No one ever picks up their laundry anymore." Then he walked out. By the time officers arrived, he was gone. The surveillance footage from that night was clear. The face was aged, the hair thinner, but the eyes, the expression, were unmistakable. Raymond Cole. Authorities traced him for weeks after, but every lead went quiet. Some believed he fled across the border. Others thought he died in the desert. The FBI closed the active file in mid-24, citing lack of credible sightings. But Detective Nunez never stopped looking. She keeps a single photo on her office wall, the one of Wilkins's duffel bag in that first laundromat, untouched, full of folded clothes. Next to it, a still frame from the Utah footage. Cole glancing up, the faint ghost of a smile frozen under fluorescent light. For her, the case isn't over. Not until she finds the truth of what happened to the man who never picked up his laundry. Epilogue. Today, the disappearance of Gregory Wilkins and the manhunt for Raymond Cole remain among the most haunting unsolved cases in recent U.S. history. The empty laundromat lot has been paved over, replaced by a gas station that few realize sits atop the story's beginning. Every year, on March 14th, someone leaves a small bundle of folded clothes by the old storm drain near where Wilkins' torn shirt was found. No one has ever seen who leaves it. Just before dawn, the bundle always disappears.